Hello, thanks for watching this new video. I am making a video on a Raspberry Pi distro. This is a Lite version of the Raspberry Pi OS app, and those actually have no desktop version pre-installed, so this is actually like a server edition without a GUI. So what I did is I installed a couple window managers or desktop managers. The first one was lightdm, and there's like a greeter that is used to sort of log in, and one of them is, the recommended one is called lightdm, but I installed a different one called LXDM, which is the one that you use for the LXDE desktop manager, which is also really lightweight, but it's I had some trouble loading the desktop version, so I also installed XFCE 4, which is the name of this desktop one that I'm using right now. And I've used this one for over 15 years. I probably started using it in 2008 or so. And it's much lighter than GNOME, especially on a slower computer. It's not, that uncommon, but it works really good with the Raspberry Pi, and this is a 3B plus, so it's a little bit older than the newer 4 and 5s, but for something like a Raspberry Pi 3B, I think XFCE is probably the most you want to use, since it uses about a quarter of the RAM just installing it. LXD works really good too, it just depends on the distro that you have. And this does have a gigabyte of RAM, which is more than the Raspberry Pi Zero, which isn't a problem, but on this one I actually will uninstall this lightdm because I was trying to figure out how many dependencies it removes when you uninstall it, and it's actually showing that it's only going to remove about 2 megabytes, but when I installed it, it actually installed about 250 megabytes of just like dependencies. Now, some of these dependencies you're probably going to use for a different one, and the LXDM manager does probably use a lot of them, but it would be nice to know how many are actually needed. So I went through all the light DMs that had not yet been removed, and I found a few. By the way, I did install the Synaptic Manager after I installed the GUI, so a lot of this stuff wasn't already installed. But XFCE includes a lot of like basic useful stuff without including a lot of other programs that take up a lot of space. I did install Lynx 2 and Midori before XFCE, so I was able to get that on the Fastlight Toolkit, FLWM. This one was included. I mean, it's a volume control, may as well use it. And this here, so you get like terminal and everything, but I'm just gonna uninstall this and then see what happens. Apply, to be removed, completely removed. So I thought it was gonna completely remove it, but I guess not. Maybe there is a way to remove it, or I just didn't select it. I thought I had uninstalled all of them, but I guess not. Or maybe I already uninstalled it. So the ones that I did select, I did select mark for complete removal, but yeah, I guess it's only uninstalling the dependencies for those, not other dependencies that might be used for something else. I mean, it doesn't consider it part of its sort of, I don't know, it's not considered a dependency. So I'm going to go ahead and uninstall that. So yeah, the greeter, it wasn't really loading really well when I had installed it before, so after I logged in, after I typed in the password, it just brought me right back to the same login, and I just thought it was too heavyweight, and actually one of the articles I read said there's a lighter weight version called CDM, which is more console based, and then there's another one, I think it's XDM. Well, no, XDM is a lot older, and I was able to get that one to load, but I didn't really get much further than that. I don't think it's a great one to use. I thought it would be like Lite, but there's other ones. So I guess it's done here. So I'm gonna just go ahead and close this out. And there's about, yeah, this is a 4 GB SD card, and it's using about 2 GB for the image to install it, and then I think there was only like another 2 GB for the installation or something. So when I log out, I actually get the options of a few window managers like LXDM, XFCE. I don't know what this one is. Could be LX or XFCE. But this one actually works really well. And this one doesn't have any manager or window bar, so it's just like the Fast Lite toolkit. Very lightweight. It's actually kind of difficult to get to the Explorer because it doesn't really even seem to include that unless XFCE installed it. But earlier I didn't have all that. Window manager, file manager settings, applications. But you get like all the video, quite a bit of accessibility, communications, web browsing. Viewers, toys. These things were installed after I installed XFCE because I didn't have this before. But yeah, a lot handier. So I'm gonna just log out and restart this again. I I think the default might be XFCE, but I'm not 100% sure. Could be XFCE or it could be LXDE. It might be trying to load XFCE, or it's just not working at all. I mean, it is showing activity, so it could be XFCE. Oh, okay, yeah, it was trying to load lightdm, but I had already uninstalled that. But this is an older manager. I think this might be the the older window manager. So that one didn't work. This is, oh yeah, this is XFCE. So it runs, so the browsers run okay, and by browser I'm not referring to Google Chrome, but like this loads pretty quickly. Even the Midori loads alright, but it's not very ideal. I can actually install Chrome at the end of this video, or Chromium, but like this here you can get to Google pretty easily, but it's not really. So this actually works pretty decently. And this is the response time you would want to have for a Raspberry Pi 3, because anything more than that is going to really slow down. Like even when you start to use Midori, it takes longer to load, and even the basic pages seem to struggle with loading. Like, just stuff like that where you're typing, you have to wait like a second sometimes. Which isn't to say it doesn't happen with links, but like this sort of stuff, like it shouldn't take that long just to load a basic page, but I guess it's trying to load all the richer stuff, so you kind of have to disable this stuff just so that it'll run. And I've used Midori a long time ago. I don't remember it being that slow, but I guess your mileage might vary. So, yeah, I mean, there's other ones you can use, but I don't want to use that. So first I'm going to show a boot up process of a restart, and then I think it's using a legacy version, so it's using like Debian Buster, not the Bookworm. I was going to try that one out later, but so it does conveniently show that it's rebooting, but it's not. Yeah, it counts up instead of down, I think, so it doesn't really tell you how much time's left, but that's not a big deal. At least you know it's not frozen, I guess, unless it's going through an endless loop. Okay. So this is loading. So I have Ethernet connected. I'm not using Wi-Fi. I just prefer it because it's much faster, and I have a USB keyboard, USB mouse, and I'm loading it from a USB drive with a micro SD adapter, or and a SD adapter. Since this is using a DSi monitor, which has a little ribbon around the micro SD slot, so I don't want to remove that ribbon every time I remove the micro SD. And then plus I'm just testing it, so I don't mind using a USB drive even if it takes a little longer to load. So it looks like there was a blinking. That wasn't really in view there, but it was blurry, so it wasn't really apparent. Okay. So the boot up time is not super long. I think it only takes maybe a couple minutes, but it is loading. Definitely less time than some of the other ones. I think the the Puppy Linux one, RaspUp, took a really long time, but that was also loading from RAM, so I guess login, and I'm going to make sure to use XFCE, and if I'm able to get this to run pretty decently, I might make an image so that it can be easily downloaded like a live CD. I think it would be useful, at least for me. It would be about a 3 gigabyte or 3.5 gigabyte image, but if you have a 4 gigabyte drive, it'll fit. You don't need an 8 gigabyte, which the newer ones use. Actually, that was one of the reasons I used this, because I have this really old SD card. It's not even a class 10, I think it's a class 4, which does take a little bit longer to load, but let me install Chromium, see how long it takes to load. Oh, and yeah, I wanted to install the Sataz browser, which I actually wasn't even able to access the website with Midori, so I was actually going to install the Debian package manager, but I think I need to use the GW, the Debian, like the auto-executable installer, so I may as well try Chromium or some other browser that actually works. Okay. So it's going to select a bunch of packages that I'm sure are going to be quite a bit. 202 megabytes. Well, at least I have the space, so I may as well use it. I don't know how much RAM or swap space is going to be affected, but there was about 100 megabytes of swap, so I barely have enough space for that. I'll go ahead and install that. And I think this is probably a little better than the Diet Pie, because it's just a little more intuitive. I mean, if you install XFCE and all that, it probably will be okay, but it really depends on the config that you have, because there's a sudo raspi config command that you can run, and you can select what you want to run, but it will also make some bad recommendations, like do you want to install, or not do you want to install, but install lightdm, because they say so. And that just turned out to be a bad idea, so it's better to install Lite LXDM, which is a lot better. And so this is probably going to take a little while, but not that long because it is on Ethernet and it's able to download relatively quickly. But unpacking it and all that on a Cortex A53 is going to be like a cell phone from 2015 or so, or 2012. And I expanded this panel. It used to be just a small little deck, but I made it a little wider. Plus, I wanted this thing to be on the bottom instead of the top. So I moved that over. And it used to be on the top right. And this display is actually pretty decent. It's 800 by 400, so for what I use it for, it's more than enough. Yep, DSI monitor. Which does use less power than the HDMI monitors, but or the TFT ones. So I'm going to check this HTOP again to see how much memory it's using during the install. So it's not using a whole lot, but sometimes it peaks or so when it's doing encoding or decoding or untarring or unzipping. The packages are downloaded and then run on the it's just running an installation here. I probably should close this since it's using too much memory for the HTOP. It seems to be running pretty slow. I mean, I don't have a fan on it or anything. I'm wondering whether it's just getting throttled or something. But I mean, it is installing Chromium, so I'm not really that surprised. But sometimes it just feels like it is getting throttled, and I'm thinking maybe I should install a fan on it or something. I mean, I don't think the Raspberry Pi 3B needs it, but I don't know, I guess I have more expectations compared to a Raspberry Pi Zero, which has only a single core. So there's some times where the Raspberry Pi doesn't run as fast as it could, and this is why installing the server version is a lot better, because it removes a lot of the unnecessary stuff that makes it run slow. But yeah, it doesn't seem to be taking too long. It's just got to unpack the large files. gdeb. Although you would kind of expect it to be using more CPU power because it's only using 3%. So it could just be that the drive is running slow and it's trying to read from the web drive, and I'm only using a class 4, so I guess that's one of the things that it doesn't really work well with, so I guess that's probably the bottleneck. That could be my mistake, but I wouldn't expect the unpacking to be so slow if it could really just do some of that in RAM, I suppose, but then again I would still have to rewrite, send it back to the drive to, once it's done unpacking it still has to write it to the drive, so that's probably, yeah, that's probably the bottleneck. I just didn't expect it to be that slow. For most other apps it doesn't seem to be a problem. Well, maybe for Midori, but I thought it was just the browser that it was having trouble rendering the web pages. But a lot of other desktop apps don't seem to have the problem because they're either loaded from RAM or something. Alright, well, it seems to be moving a little further here. So there's quite a few options here. This is just like a visual of the other ones that I already saw in the menu, but this is pretty handy. Also, with monitors that don't show the whole window, there's a trick that's really handy. If you press the Alt button on your keyboard, you can actually drag the window over to the part, because it doesn't always have that option if you don't have this thing, plus even if you can't, or if you can, you still can't move it all the way up. So when you press the Alt button on your keyboard, it'll let you move it all the way, so that's really the only way you can use some of these monitors, but it's so uncommon that it's not really a big deal. Yeah, this here I don't want to change, but it can be handy if the mouse is running a little slow. And this is probably going to take another 5 or 10 minutes, depending on how long it takes. But I'll let it keep running, I guess. I'm not that low on battery yet, but if it gets to about 40 minutes, then I might have to. About 45% complete. Okay, looks like it's almost done now. Alright, so I don't expect it to run super fast, but at least it's going to be able to load. Oh, hopefully I didn't close that too quickly. So I have Chromium installed, and depending on how much disk space you have, sometimes the computer might say that it runs out of memory, so I only have 12.9 megabytes. Now I might be able to expand the disk space when I go into the terminal, because I don't think I totally expanded the drive to the entire SD card, but I'll work on that later, especially if I run out of memory. So that default one is still using links, but I'll just click on this. Alright. I didn't think that would be S, but okay. So about, I would expect about at least 10 seconds, but it might take 20 seconds to load. I don't want to slow it down, but it's probably doing something. So one of the cores is running at complete. Okay, so it loaded, I think it, oh, never mind. So it's only using 291 megabytes, which is actually not a lot, but once you start to open up more tabs, that'll quickly increase to like 500 or 600 or 800. So the first place I'm going to try to load is, well, I guess I'll just use the Debian ones. Maybe it's still climbing. It hasn't fully loaded. Okay, well, only 292, but I guess I'll just try the ones that it has pre-installed first to see how those load. I probably should move this over. I would think that these would be Still active links. I mean, it's only been a year or two since this distro was released. Actually, the Chromium should be even newer, as long as it still has access to the repository. So it's using all the cores, and so it's keeping the temperatures relatively close, but I feel like it's throttling or something. I don't know. It's just running really slow. Or it's just a micro SD drive. That's really odd. It's not the internet connection. Although I do wish that this had a Ethernet indicator. Maybe it is. My internet seems to be working fine. But I wish it would show the Ethernet, but I don't think that's it. Okay, it looks like this did load, so maybe it just took a while to reinitialize, or... Okay, so that's working. So the next thing I'm going to do is check this package that I wanted to download, and it wasn't working on the other one, but I've wanted to install it on this here. So it is using about 100, well, yeah, maybe 100 megabytes of RAM, which isn't a whole lot compared to how much it can use. It can use gigabytes and gigabytes. And plus, the pages that I'm actually loading are not anywhere near typical websites. So this is the one that I wanted to load here, because it is a Debian-based distro, so it should be able to run this script here that I had installed on my other one for AnyPi. Although downloading it shouldn't be a problem now that I have the file manager installed. For some reason, I couldn't get, Midori or links to load it. I don't think the file manager was all set up. But even with this, actually I only have 12 megabytes left, so I might need to uninstall something. But still, you would think that it would allow you to... Yep. Okay. Yep. So I'm going to close this here. And I'm also going to uninstall other apps because I don't have any space. I wasn't able to see... Oh, there it is. Okay, never mind. Alright, save. Will I get an error? $22 MB. It would be nice if they actually used MB, since it's megabytes, not megabits. So I'm going to have to uninstall something. And that's going to be Midori, because I don't really use it. And it's not very useful right now. And I like to use command line too, but some things are just faster when you have a graphical interface. And it always removes less space than you use to install it, just because, and it shouldn't be that way, but that's just the way it is. I think it installed like 150 megabytes, something like that. It'll say you can completely remove it, and all it does is it removes the configuration files, but it doesn't consider the dependencies as part of it, because it just says, well, those aren't specific to that program, and technically that's true, but in an embedded system, a lot of times you're just installing it for one app or something, so maybe I can make a distro where it's just based on an embedded application, and then the entire Linux spin, whether it's based off of like Ubuntu or Debian, it's going to actually consider global dependencies as part of the package that you uninstall. So it can always reinstall it. It could even just have a single file that you can unpack and store on a micro SD, or you can store it somewhere. But there's really no reason why you should have to, you know, not have the option to remove all the dependencies. Even if something else is using it, it could still notify you what's using it and why you can't remove everything that you installed back then. And now we only have about, so now we have even less space. Apparently during the temp files it had to store a bunch of other stuff. So I guess I'll have to try this other thing called sudo I think that's it. I'm just going by memory here. Okay. So what I can do here is configure system settings. Not that. Advanced settings. Ensures that all of this SD card is available. Okay, let me try. I might have already tried that, but oh. So apparently when you press the wrong button, it won't even accept it. So I may have to go back here. Oh, never mind. I guess it was doing something. Okay, so it looks like I had root partition file has been resized. The file system will be enlarged. So I think it was only using like 3.4 gigabytes. So maybe 3.8 megabytes. Okay, well, the longer I have Chrome running, the more it's going to save stuff on temporary files. Actually, what I could do is I could just delete all my temporary files for now, and that might even work. Okay. I guess I'm only deleting 1.3 megabytes. That wasn't enough. So I thought I would be uninstalling more, but apparently not. I guess I will have to reinstall the whole, or restart the whole computer. Alright, so it says that it was remounted. I don't know anything about whether it was resized or not, or whether I already completed this resizing earlier. I remember seeing it, but I don't remember if it actually did it. Alright, maybe I turned it off by accident, I don't know. I might have to power it back on. Hopefully it didn't skip the resizing action, or maybe it didn't complete that part because it froze during the reboot, which could be a problem, but I guess I'll find out once I load it up. Yeah, it's gonna be blurry like that because it just has to do that. Okay, now that I see it's blinking, it seems like it's actually trying to load. I think usually it does that, so it probably did freeze or something, or it just shut down even though I selected it to reboot. Well, it did stop blinking, so maybe this is where I got to the last part. I might have to wait maybe 3 or 4 minutes But it is blinking now, so the micro SD card, the SD card is actually, it is trying to load, so I'll just let it. See, that didn't take very long, I think. I think it was an issue with just the shutdown or stalling. Okay, so now I'm going to load. Okay, I have 42 megabytes, so I didn't get it to resize very much, but hopefully by the time I get to the Slataz webpage, it won't have cached a ton of web pages in the temporary file folder, before I download the 22 megabytes. So this is a race against time to download a 22 megabyte file before Chrome fills up the temp folder with just a bunch of you know what. I didn't think I would be doing this, but I guess resizing the partition fortunately may have fixed it, or it could have just been the cache that got deleted on the reboot, so it may not have actually done anything. But this time I'm gonna skip ahead to this Slataz page, and I'm not gonna load anything else. At least that's one way to prevent it from loading a lot of unnecessary files. Yeah, that is just too early to say. With this browser and with this system, it's normal to take that long. So waiting it is not uncommon. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and download this now. Right click. Now, it's possible that I run out of space after I run this package, but I'm willing to take that risk, and even if so, at least I'll know that this distro works. So it is trying to download, but if the page has a temp.f file with a whole bunch of stuff that it has to download, then there's no way that it could actually hold on to 42 megabytes of free disk space. So fortunately, the Slataz website didn't have a whole bunch of web page cache that it used. So the next thing is just waiting for this package manager to run, assuming it will. But for all intents and purposes, I might not really need to use this browser anymore unless I have to run this shell script. Oops. I don't think I had to do it last time, but I guess I could just check this in case. Huh. Oh, that was 2017. I don't remember seeing this, but I guess I don't need to use it. So after closing the Chromium browser, it's using 224 megabytes, and it is not using any space. It's not using much CPU power, but if it's trying to load the package, it either ran out of space or it's just not, it doesn't have the package open with, so there's not even a GW. Yeah, I think I need to install the GW, so I don't really have any space on this thing. I just assumed it would, but no, I don't have enough space. Well, one thing I could do is uninstall Chromium, since I don't really need that anymore. Before I do that, yeah, I guess you really do want to use something like an 8 gigabyte drive, even if it's for the server edition of Raspberry Pi OS, the Lite version, with no desktop. That's the only thing I remember. GW lets you install local deb packages, resolving it. So this thing is going to take up a lot of space. 24.5 megabytes. So I do have to remove Chromium. I also don't know how much space it'll take to see. When I first installed this, it took like 200 and something megabytes, but I doubt, see, it's only going to remove 113 just because. So that's alright, I can deal with that later, because I only need 24 megabytes, and I will go ahead with freeing some space. Apply. But there's definitely better ways you can make use of 4 gigabytes of storage. Certainly better ways to do that. Okay, well, I only have another 59 minutes of video on my 64 gigabyte micro SD card, but I don't plan on using all that time, and I only have less than a third of my battery left, so that's going to run out faster sooner than that. But hopefully I can get Slataz booted up to the bootloader at the very least by the time this video finishes. I didn't think it would take an hour, but I'm getting there. And hopefully this uninstall doesn't take forever. since it's such a frequently installed program, I would have think that they probably optimized it a little bit, so I don't expect it to take that long, but you never know. I mean, it is a class 4 SD card, so that's my fault. Okay. It doesn't even have a little bar here, but that could mean anything. Alright, seems to be moving along. And I did get this to run on a Raspberry Pi a couple of years ago. I made a video of it. It didn't have really any programs that really ran. It only had a couple, and the menu actually had a lot of other programs that that were like there on the menu, but they didn't actually load. So it led me to think that they weren't actually installed, or they were sort of like shortcuts that were based on those programs actually working. So I'm curious if this one is basically going to piggyback off the other distro, and it's just going to use it as a, like, so the entire operating system is running like a GUI on top of the Debian distro, which would be kind of an interesting thing to do, but I don't know how it works in practice in a way that would mean it's more like a middleware, but it's not technically a middleware because it can run its own apps. So I guess if it doesn't have all the apps built in, then it probably won't be able to do all of that. Also, the image files for STAs are typically like 50 megabytes or 90 megabytes, which doesn't require anything else, so I don't know how much it's going to download, but maybe more than 24 megabytes. But I only have 124 megabytes after removing Chromium, so I might be able to get by if it doesn't download more. Wow, this is unpacking quite a bit here. And there was probably some other things I wanted to test on Chrome, but I just didn't have the chance. I could definitely do that some other time on a class 10 micro SD card. Or maybe even a UHS 1, but I don't know what the maximum speed is for this. So the GW it is being installed. I'm guessing that's what's being unpacked, because I'm thinking it wouldn't be unpacking anything if it's removing something, but I don't know. Okay, my battery is dangerously low. It's starting to blink the battery icon, which means that I may run out.